Discover the miraculous transformations of Deuteronomy, God's sacred covenant revealed. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, a great assembly gathered on the sun-baked sands of Moab. Here stood Moses, their revered leader, poised to impart a final message of divine significance as the Israelites teetered on the cusp of the promised land. The air was thick with anticipation, and the golden hues of sunset danced across the multitude, illuminating the many faces of a people weary yet hopeful, longing for the land flowing with milk and honey. With a heart full of memories, Moses opened his mouth to share the sacred history that had woven them together. "Hear, O Israel!" he called, his voice resonating through the hills, a sound reminiscent of thunder, filling each heart with reverence. Do you remember the bondage of Egypt? The agonizing cries of our ancestors under Pharaoh's whip? How our God intervened with mighty plagues that rained down upon the proud, how he parted the waters of the Red Sea, leading us through upon dry land. As he spoke, the history of their miraculous escape unfurled before them like a tapestry, each thread shimmering with the testimony of God's power over tyranny. Do not forget the trials that followed, Moses implored. The memories rushed over him, the dry expanses of the wilderness, the groans of hunger that birthed the sweet manna from heaven, the fierce thirst that called forth gushing waters from the rock. Yet, he recalled the rebellion and the doubt, the countless times they turned away from God's tender hand. He has guided you with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night, he urged, the fierce light of divine love shining through his words, drawing the people close once again to the heart of their God. Today I set before you blessings and curses. Moses declared, a summons to wisdom, an echo of divine authority resonating in the air. Choose life. With the weight of the covenant upon them, he urged them to embrace the vibrant life of loving the Lord, obeying his commandments, commanding reverence and action. The sacred laws, once thundered from Mount Sinai amidst smoke and tremors, now awaited their devotion and fidelity. Before the crowd's apprehensive eyes, Moses lifted his gaze, piercing into the depths of their collective future. He reminded them of their forefather Abraham, the pivotal promise against which they now stood. You are a chosen people, he intoned solemnly, their calling shimmering like golden strands woven within his heart. Yet, he forewarned them the allure of foreign gods would seek to draw them into shadows, tempting their faith. In a moment that twisted sorrow within the air like a sharp wind, Moses confessed his own fate. I will not enter the land, he revealed, the ache of loss heavy in the sound of his voice. But he continued, God will remain with you. They watched as he climbed Mount Nebo, standing at the precipice of promise, where he beheld a land he would not tread. Still, the divine assurance of God's faithfulness echoed in his spirit, bolstering the hearts of those who would go forth. As the sun sank lower, casting the landscape in a crimson glow, Moses' voice rose to a crescendo of conviction. The days are ahead, temptations dark and alluring, he warned, but threaded through it all was a promise, a declaration that God's love would not let them go. Would they grasp this truth? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Moses' words hung like a sacred charge in the air, beckoning surrender and faith. The Israelites stood on the brink, filled with questions. Would they heed the warning? Would they, despite the looming uncertainties, trust the irrefutable promise of their God? The path stretched ahead, veiled in both peril and promise, embodying the sacred faith they were to carry into the land awaiting their embrace. And as the echoes of Moses' voice lingered across the plains, the hearts of the Israelites stirred. They gazed out over the faraway hills, where the promised land awaited, a land rich in resources, teeming with life, a land adorned with the promise of their God. Yet, in their souls, they felt the conflict of anticipation and fear, for the challenges ahead were great. Behold, Moses continued, his eyes fixed upon them, gleaming with fervent desire for their fidelity. You shall possess the land, yet with possession comes responsibility. Guard yourselves against the snares of the nations around you, lest you stray from the path of righteousness that the Lord has laid before you. He drew close, the urgency in his heart spilling forth. If your hearts turn away and you do not obey, but are led astray to worship other gods and bow down to them, his voice trembled, I declare to you today that you shall surely perish. There arose a murmur among the people, uncertain and whispering, as mothers held their children close and fathers exchanged glances filled with concern. Yet, amidst the tide of anxiety, a voice broke through a youthful spirit named Joshua, chosen to succeed Moses. We will hold fast. We will trust in the Lord. He proclaimed, emboldened by the Spirit of God, a stirring among the crowd igniting the flames of faith. Moses, heartened by this declaration, nodded, Yes, Joshua. For it is written, Be strong and of good courage, do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. The sun dipped lower, casting shadows that stretched long and deep, but within the hearts of many, hope began to rise. As the evening light waned, Moses detailed the statutes and judgments, recounting each commandment that would serve as a lamp unto their feet and a light unto their path. Psalm 119 verse 105. These commandments are not mere words, he urged, but the very heartbeat of our covenant with God, an eternal bond that will sustain you through the valleys of darkness and the heights of triumph. Suddenly, the night was pierced by a brilliant star, bright in the expanse, a celestial reminder of God's promise that shone down upon his people. Look upon that star, Moses said as every eye turned heavenward, and remember that the Lord himself leads you. Never forget the Lord's goodness, for he is a just God, merciful yet mighty. Each tribe must take heed and strengthen one another, he continued, inspiring unity among them, for as iron sharpens iron, so does one person sharpen another. Proverbs 27 verse 17. And so, he called forth the leaders, the elders, the priests, and each tribe's head, bidding them to recount their tales of faithfulness through the ages. As they shared their memories of divine intervention, the sea parted, the walls of Jericho crumbled, the sun stood still. Each testimony served as a budding flame, lighting the dark edges of doubt. Yet, as dawn approached, Moses understood that despite their vows, a lingering uncertainty hung heavy in the air. Would they truly follow the path laid before them? With a heart burdened by the weight of their future, he prayed, O Lord, may they remember your ways and abide by your laws. Let not their hearts be as stone, but flesh, receptive to every whisper of your Spirit. And just as he concluded, a gentle breeze swept across the hillside, a whisper from heaven, assuring the onlookers of God's presence among them. The air shimmered with an unspoken promise that through obedience, the land they longed for would be theirs. As the assembly broke, the promises and perils of the journey ahead had been laid bare. Would Israel rise to meet the calling of their God? Or would they falter in the face of temptation? In the depths of minds and hearts, an urgent question lingered: what would God accomplish through their faithfulness? The dawn would soon break, and with it, a tapestry of divine plans woven with the threads of each choice made, each lesson learned, and the spirit of every believer enduring through trials yet unseen. Thus, a divine mystery beckoned them forward, waiting to reveal God's sovereign plan. The time was drawing near when he would unveil more than they imagined, restoring their hearts and lands in ways beyond their wildest dreams. As the morning sun broke over the horizon, its rays illuminated the encampment of Israel. The people stirred, rising from their rest, still filled with the remnants of Moses' stirring words the night before. The anticipation hung in the air, thick and tangible, as hearts began to align with the promise of the day ahead. Moses, standing among the elders upon the sacred mount, sensed the gravity of what lay before them. He turned his face toward the heavens, his heart lifted in prayer. Lord, empower me to guide this people, he implored earnestly. Grant them the fortitude to follow your ways, that their hearts may remain steadfast in your covenant. As he descended from the mount, the tribes assembled once more, eyes fixed on their leader, eager yet apprehensive about the course set before them. Moses' presence commanded respect. They knew he had spoken face to face with God. He held in his hands the tablets that bore testimony to their covenant, the sacred law etched in stone, divine commandments that encapsulated the essence of holiness and righteousness. Gather around, O Israel. He called, his voice resounding through the camp like a trumpet. Today, you shall hear the words of the Lord, the very statutes that shall guide you in the promised land. A hush fell over the multitude, every ear poised to receive the divine instruction. Listen closely, he began, for these decrees reveal the nature of God himself. Thou shalt have no other gods before me, Exodus 20 verse 3. You are to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might, Deuteronomy 6 verse 5. These commands are not burdensome but hold the keys to life and blessing. As he recounted the law, the people felt a stirring deep within, a conviction ignited by the truth of God's desire for their holiness. But within that stirring also came a warning. Cursed is the one who does not confirm all the words of the law by observing them, Deuteronomy 27 verse 26, Moses pronounced, his voice solemn and resonant, eyes darted as the tribes realized the weight of their responsibility. The freedoms yet unknown were tethered to their fidelity. Yet amid the threats of disobedience, Moses shared the glorious promise, and all these blessings will come upon you and overtake you, because you obey the voice of the Lord your God, Deuteronomy 28 verse 2. At that moment, a spirit of resolve swept through the assembly as some began to lift their voices in unison, declaring their commitment, we will do as the Lord commands. The atmosphere of unity grew as the younger generation, like Joshua, stirred the hearts of their elders, despite looming doubts, yet, a heaviness lingered over Moses. A foreboding spirit whispered within him, he considered the enticements of the land, the idols, the high places, the temptations that would seek to lure them away from their covenant. O Lord, he prayed silently, let my people remember you, and may they cling to your word as their most treasured possession. Then, amidst the rising chorus of promises, a sudden stillness enveloped the ground, and a cloud descended upon the people, as if heaven itself was enveloping them with divine presence. In that moment, they felt the weight of righteousness and the urgency of faith. Moses raised his hands in supplication, if you will go with us, we will remain faithful. For your presence is what distinguishes us from all other peoples on the earth, Exodus 33 verse 16. As the sun climbed higher, and the crowd's hopes began to rise, they sensed something stirring within. The hands of providence were moving, crafting something unimaginable. The moment held a promise still veiled. What awaited them was not merely conquest, but an unfolding of God's eternal plan, a grand design that would echo through generations. The Israelites stood at the precipice of history, ready to take their first steps into destiny. Yet, the question loomed, what divine wonders awaited in the land, and how would their newfound faith be tested in the trials to come? For they were on the brink of experiencing something mighty and new, unfolding reality. Anchored in God's sovereign mystery. As the hush before the storm lingered, Moses, standing among the elders, felt the weight of the moment thick in the air. The cloud that had descended now glimmered with an ethereal light, illuminating the faces of the people with a divine glow. Fear mingled with awe as they beheld the majesty of the Lord manifesting among them. Behold, Moses declared, the Lord has drawn near to you. Prepare your hearts, for he will speak among us. His voice rang clear, urging the people forward in their faith, each word fortified by a promise not yet unveiled. The elders nodded solemnly, their faces reflecting both reverence and concern. With reverently quiet hearts, the Israelites listened as Moses began to set before them the conditions of their covenant with God. You shall not make for yourselves a carved image, he instructed, Exodus 20 verse 4, the echoes of his words reverberating through the camp. For the Lord your God is a jealous God. His voice softened, yet the intensity remained. Remember your past, the bondage from which he delivered you. Do not forget the mighty hand that led you through the wilderness, for it was not by your strength but by his faithfulness that you are here today. The people murmured in agreement, memories of suffering and deliverance flooding their hearts. Among the crowd, Joshua stood tall, his heart stirred with resolve. We will serve the Lord, he proclaimed, emboldening others to join him. The youth and the elderly alike rallied together, their voices rising united, we will obey his commands. Each declaration became a brick in the foundation of their new commitment to God. However, shadows lurked over the gathering. Moses felt the urgency rise within him. But heed well my words. He warned. If you turn away and serve other gods, the Lord's anger will burn against you, and you will perish. His voice rang with authority, a somber reminder of the consequences of disobedience. Deuteronomy 30 verse 17. As the sun arched overhead, casting a golden hue upon the assembly, Moses continued to impart divine wisdom. Choose life, he urged, that you may live and your children after you, loving the Lord your God, obeying his voice, and holding fast to him. Deuteronomy 30 verse 19. The words hung heavily in the air, pulling at the heartstrings of the people, their souls searching for the truth. Among them, a whispered doubt arose: what if we falter? Will he still be with us? A murmur spread, igniting uncertainty among the tribes. Yet Moses, sensing their anxiety, called upon the power of remembrance. Recall, O Israel, he exhorted, how the Lord your God led you all the way through the wilderness these 40 years, to humble and to test you, in order to know what was in your heart, whether or not you would keep his commands. Deuteronomy 8 verse 2. His face radiated warmth, and his voice softened to a gentle cadence. He fed you with manna, something neither you nor your ancestors had known, to teach you that man does not live on bread alone but on every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord. Deuteronomy 8 verse 3. An energy surged through the assembly, a recognition of their profound dependency on divine providence. They began to grasp that their covenant was not merely a collection of rules, but an invitation to experience life in its fullest, blessed and rooted in the mercy of God. As the shadows lengthened, Moses raised his hands toward the heavens, his voice rising in fervent prayer. O God, grant them the understanding to see into your ways, that they may forever cling to you. In that very moment, the ground trembled as a mighty wind swept over the camp. The clouds swirled above, hinting at a forthcoming revelation. Every heart raced, filled with a sense of divine anticipation. It was then that a new voice, like the sound of rushing waters, echoed from above, promising, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. The word settled amid the people, engendering awe and hope, a reminder that their journey was not just a passage through geography, but a pilgrimage toward destiny, intertwined with the very heart of God himself. As they murmured this promise, their eyes turned upward, seeking to understand what awaited them in the land flowing with milk and honey. For they were about to enter a future laden with challenges and triumphs, overflowing with the miracles of God's sovereign plan, yet the full mystery of his purpose remained shrouded just beyond their grasp. As the people remained in hushed reverence, a profound silence enveloped the camp, broken only by the rustling of the wind through the branches of the surrounding trees. It was within this stillness that Moses invited the Spirit of the Lord to descend among them. Trembling with expectation, the Israelites strained their ears to hear the next words that would echo through the generations. "Gather around," Moses commanded, "for the Lord desires to speak his law to you." The multitude drew closer, forming a semicircle that encompassed the revered leader, their hearts collectively yearning for the divine instruction that would guide their journey. With a deepest breath, Moses articulated the commandments, the very foundation stones of their covenant with the Almighty. "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your might." Deuteronomy 6 verse 5. Each word pierced through the air like a sharpened arrow, striking the core of their beings and igniting a fire of devotion. The elders and leaders recorded the sacred words, their hands trembling as they forged the law into memory, while the people soaked in the gravity of the moment. "Impress them on your children," Moses continued, "talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up." Deuteronomy 6 verse 7. In the eyes of the people, an understanding began to dawn. This was not merely a list of regulations but a life and enduring commitment that woven them together as one nation under their God. They would encounter the trials of life, but in this covenant, they were promised stability and assurance. Yet even as the hope surged within their hearts, with shadows still casting doubt, Moses lifted his gaze as if peering into the very depths of heaven. "Beware that your hearts are not deceived," he warned, his voice laden with earnest conviction. "Do not turn aside to the false gods of the nations around you, lest the anger of the Lord be kindled against you." Deuteronomy 11 verse 16. A tremor of fear intertwined with awe surged through the assembly. The threat of disobedience was clear, a taunt against their ancient deliverer, a siren call back to Egypt. Moses felt the weight of his mission, he implored the Lord for their continued faithfulness, and in his heart a fervent prayer arose, "May they see your wonders, O Lord." As night descended, the air crackled with electric anticipation. A thick darkness spread across the land, yet above the Mount Sinai, the brilliance of the presence of God shone brightly. Amid the glimmering light, the Lord spoke directly to Moses, granting revelation, "Today, I set before you a choice, life and prosperity, or death and destruction." Deuteronomy 30 verse 15. The might of the moment seized every heart, as Moses conveyed the enormity of the decision before them. "Choose life, that you may live, you and your descendants." Deuteronomy 30 verse 19. But as the people stood spellbound, he continued with a voice reverberating with divine authority, "For I will gather you, and I will restore you and your fortunes." Jeremiah 29 verse 14. In that instant, they were reminded God was their refuge, and their covenant was forever. Yet a whisper echoed among the trees, a promise yet to unfold, a longing steeped in hope. "For I will raise up a prophet like you from among their brothers, I will put my words in his mouth, and he will tell them everything I command him." Deuteronomy 18 verse 18. The air thickened with reverence and wonder, as those gathered sought the meaning behind these words. For in their covenant, the very presence of the Lord was preparing a path, unbeknownst to them, shaping a future intertwined with the fulfillment of promises beyond their imagination, revealing the depth of his sovereign plan. As the dawn broke over the encampment, a golden light illuminated the rugged terrain of Sinai. The people stirred from their slumber, each heart still echoing the weight of the night's revelation. Moses stood at the foot of the mountain, his face aglow with the radiance of God's presence, filled with an urgency that transcended the mere giving of the law. "Today," he proclaimed, "you stand before the Lord your God, gathered as one people. Let your hearts be steadfast, for you are called to a holy covenant." A hush fell upon the assembly once more, as they sensed the gravity of his words. The divine purpose unfolding among them was not to be taken lightly. "You shall therefore love the Lord your God and keep his charge, his statutes, his commandments, and his rules, and obey his voice." Deuteronomy 11 verse 1. The shimmering voice of the Almighty seemed to surround them, as Moses reminded them of their covenantal obligations. "And if you faithfully obey the commandments that I command you today, to love the Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, he will give the rain for your land in its season, the early rain and the later rain, that you may gather in your grain and your wine and your oil." Deuteronomy 11 verses 13 to 14. The mention of blessing stirred the congregation's spirit, igniting hope and a renewed desire to walk in obedience. An elder stepped forward, his voice quavering. "Moses, share with us what the Lord requires of us, that we might receive his goodness." Moses nodded solemnly, "The Lord desires not just your compliance, but your hearts. You are to be a people distinct and treasured, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." Exodus 19 verse 6. The people murmured, their excitement tinged with fear. They understood that this was no ordinary charge, but within the multitude lay the shadows of doubt, lingering like a mist, and Moses perceived their hesitance. "Remember, our forefathers did not obey, and their hearts turned away." He raised his finger to the heavens, "Yet the Lord's mercy endures. For he is a God of forgiveness, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love." Psalm 103 verse 8. A collective gasp arose. The grace and mercy of their God invited them to trust, bridging the vastness between their failures and his unyielding promise. "Choose this day whom you will serve," Moses challenged with fervor, "and let not your hearts turn from the path he has set before you." Joshua 24 verse 15. In that moment, the people pledged their loyalty, raising their voices in unison, "We will serve the Lord." The sound of their proclamation reverberated through the valleys, echoing off the mountains as a sweet incense of commitment ascended to heaven. As the day unfolded, Moses conveyed the intricate details of the law, painting a picture of divine justice interwoven with empathy, pointing to the heart of God's desires, to love the stranger, to care for the widow, and to uphold the dignity of all. "For you were once strangers in the land of Egypt. Therefore, you shall keep my statutes and my rules." Leviticus 19 verse 34. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the atmosphere grew heavy with anticipation for what was to come. The spirit of prophecy stirred among the crowd, hinting at a greater truth being birthed within their midst. "For I know the plans I have for you," Moses softly uttered in prayer, echoing the words yet to be, "plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future," Jeremiah 29 verse 11. But deep in their hearts lingered a question, a longing for deeper understanding. What is the fullness of this salvation that our God will bring? For as the flame of hope kindled brighter, the mystery of the Lord's ultimate plan remained veiled in divine sovereignty. Only time would reveal the astonishing grace that awaited them, a future intricately woven into the tapestry of his unchangeable promises. And as Moses spoke these profound words, the cloud above the mountain thickened, shrouding the peak in glory. The people gasped, their eyes wide with wonder and trepidation. From within the cloud, the voice of the Lord thundered, "Come near, my people, and let them hear my statutes, that they may learn to walk in my ways." Moses, feeling the weight of the moment, ascended the mountain, his heart pounding with reverence. He stood alone before the Almighty, the ground beneath him trembling as the Lord commanded, "Write these words, for in accordance with these words I have made a covenant with you and with Israel." Exodus 34 verse 27. The tablets of stone awaited, and as Moses received them, the very law of God was inscribed by his own finger, a testament to his unyielding holiness. Each command conceived not just a code of conduct but a declaration of relationship. "You shall have no other gods before me," he began, his voice both gentle and fierce. "You shall not make for yourself an idol." Exodus 20 verses 3-4. As Moses descended, the radiant light of the law still shone upon his face, and the people could scarcely look upon him. Fear and awe intertwined in their hearts, they realized that their God was not only present, but actively guiding them. "If you will obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all peoples." Exodus 19 verse 5. Yet as they beheld the glory upon Moses, whispers of impatience crept among them, the weight of uncertainty pulling at their resolve. "Where is this Moses?" they murmured. "Let us make a god to go before us." Their hearts grew restless in the absence of his leadership, and in folly, they turned towards the gold, molding a calf in defiance of the one who had rescued them. Exodus 32 verse 1. Moses, at the foot of the mountain, heard the cries of revelry that resonated in the camp. Anguish consumed him when he beheld the forsaken idol. In that moment, the shattering of the tablets embodied both judgment and grace. He begged before the Lord, "Oh, this people have sinned a great sin. Yet now, if you will forgive their sin, blot me out of your book." Exodus 32 verses 31-32. God's response was grave. "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book." Exodus 32 verse 33. In his righteous fury, the Lord commanded that a day of atonement be established, a holy reminder of the weight of sin and the cost of redemption. Moses interceded, understanding the dire need for a mediator. "But will you not go with us?" he pleaded, "for how can it be known that I have found favor in your sight?" Exodus 33 verse 16. The Lord's presence had become synonymous with their identity, a light in their darkness. "Indeed, my presence shall go with you, and I will give you rest." Exodus 33 verse 14. The promise echoed, but Moses sought deeper assurance. "Show me your glory," he cried out. The Lord proclaimed, "I will make all my goodness pass before you, and will proclaim the name of the Lord before you." Exodus 33 verse 19. As Moses stood enveloped in divine majesty, the people were reminded that his plans were far greater than their understanding. "For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope." Jeremiah 29 verse 11. In the shadow of the mountain, the faithful lingered, their hope igniting anew. With each revelation, God's sovereign purpose unfolded, yet an unseen thread lingered, a promise yet to be unveiled in the fullness of time, revealing the true heart of covenant love in the eternal tapestry of salvation. What had the Almighty prepared for his people in the days to come? The answer waited just beyond the horizon of their history. As Moses lingered in the divine presence, the weight of the moment enveloped him like the mist of the holy mountain. The voice of the Lord resounded, striking his heart with awe and reverence. "Prepare yourself, for I shall renew my covenant with you and this people." he declared, the very air crackling with anticipation. Gather the elders of Israel, and tell them of my might and the wonders I have performed for you. Moses nodded, understanding that the renewal of this covenant would be a testament not merely to obedience but to the overarching grace of the one who had called them by name. He turned from the mountaintop, the glow of divine glory still radiating from his face, a reflection of the holiness he had encountered. Upon descending, he stood before the gathered Israelites, his heart burdened yet empowered. Hear, O Israel, he proclaimed, the Lord our God is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Deuteronomy 6 verses 4-5. His words pierced the hearts of the people, a call to fidelity in a world often tempted by distraction, yet, their rebellion was fresh in memory, the sight of the golden calf still awound within their community. How could they hold to such a decree when weakness lay so close at hand? Moses sensed their collective apprehension. If you will obey my voice, I will bless you abundantly, he continued, conviction lacing his tone. But remember this, the Lord your God is a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. Exodus 20 verse 5. A hush fell over the camp as the weight of the law bore down upon them, yet in the stillness, he offered hope. But I will show steadfast love to thousands of those who love me and keep my commandments. Exodus 20 verse 6. The promise of God's forgiveness breathed life into their despair, a reminder that even in their failures, redemption awaited through genuine repentance and faith. In the days that followed, Moses ascended the mountain once more, a lone figure swallowed by the cloud of God's majesty. I will reveal my statutes and judgments to you, these you shall impart to Israel, the Lord promised. Elevating him to heights of divine understanding, he unveiled laws not just to bind the people, but to guide them into a deeper relationship, establishing a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Exodus 19 verse 6, Moses returned with the new tablets, carved anew by the hand of God, and as he shared the unyielding commandments, the people were struck not by the weight of the law, but by the love underlying it. These are my delegated graces, adhere to them, and you shall be my testimony to the world, he declared, feeling each word pulse with the heartbeat of heaven. Yet, as the covenant was reaffirmed, so too were the shadows of their future. How would they remain faithful amidst the trials to come? Their journey would not be without hardship. Already the path of obedience was met with hostility, doubts, and divisions among them, revealing the fragile nature of their faith. Take care, Moses warned, lest your heart be deceived, and you turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. Deuteronomy 11 verse 16. The enormity of leadership weighed heavy on his heart, knowing that the next generation would need not only laws but hearts firmly anchored in the faithfulness of the Almighty. As the people nodded, their hearts conflicted but stirred, Moses looked beyond the immediate horizon as the Lord impressed a secret upon him. The plan of salvation, a much broader design, was unfurling even now, one that would courses through the ages, leading to a promise of a greater deliverance yet to be revealed. In the depths of divine mystery, the faithful stood in a breathless anticipation of what lay ahead. Whispers of an everlasting covenant began to resonate in the heavenlies, silently binding the hearts of men to a glorious unfolding. A divine deliverer awaited in the future, who would fulfill every pact made by their God. What awaited them in the fullness of time, even amid their struggle? The heavens held the answer, a promise that yet lingered, poised to reshape their collective destiny forever. As the sun rose over the encampment, casting a warm glow upon the tents, the people of Israel stirred from their sleep, their hearts heavy with the weight of Moses' words. The murmurs of uncertainty passed through the multitude as they reflected on the divine mandates entrusted to them. In their thirst for assurance, the elders gathered, faces turned toward Moses, who stood with renewed resolve. Today, he began, lifting his arms toward the heavens, we shall recount the works of the Lord, for he has delivered us from bondage and etched his laws upon our hearts. The assembly hushed, captivated by the promise of remembrance. Moses recalled the plagues that had wrought devastation upon Egypt and the Red Sea that had parted before their very eyes, Exodus 14 verses 21-22. His voice rose, filled with passion. Remember how he led us by fire and cloud. As he spoke, vivid memories fluttered in the minds of the Israelites, a revival of faith igniting amongst them. You shall teach these things to your children, Moses urged, and your children's children, that they may know the mighty deeds of the Lord and remember his covenant forever. Yet amid this sacred charge, the specter of doubt lingered. Some in the crowd began to whisper, "Will he provide for us again? Can we trust in his promises?" It was this inner turmoil that Moses sought to address, sensing their hearts straying from the path of covenant faithfulness. "If we are to thrive in the land promised to us," he implored, "we must adhere to the statutes and judgments of the Lord." His eyes scanned over the crowd, searching for resolve. "He has set before us life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life, that you and your descendants may live, loving the Lord and obeying his voice." Deuteronomy 30 verses 19 to 20. An electric silence descended, each heart hanging upon his words, the air thick with conviction. Yet, within the shadows of conviction, Moses discerned a subtle encroachment of fear, a palpable fear that their faith might falter anew. It was not lost on him that battles awaited them, that the way forward would wear upon their hearts and minds. "And when you come into the land," he cautioned, "beware lest you forget the Lord who brought you out of Egypt." He was echoed by a ripple of concern from the crowd, their eyes widening at the thought of abandoning their God. "For it is he who gives you the power to get wealth, that he may confirm his covenant which he swore to your fathers." Deuteronomy 8 verse 18. Consequently, among the elders, a young man stepped forward, his countenance solemn yet courageous. "Moses, how shall we build our future on such a fragile foundation? Our disobedience, our past." Moses, eyes gleaming with divine insight, replied, "The Lord works wonders through our weaknesses. In his strength, we are made strong." This revelation drew the hearts of the people closer together, a realization dawning that their strength lay not in their own efforts but in the covenant grace of God. The assembly of Israelites reaffirmed their commitment to the Lord, voices lifted in unison. "We will serve the Lord," they declared, their hearts reaching out to the divine promise that spanned generations. Yet in that climactic moment, a chill swept through the air as Moses paused, sensing a deeper revelation coming forth from the mountain of God. "But take heed," he warned, "for the day will come when a greater prophet like me will arise among you, one who will fulfill the law and the promises given." With that prophetic utterance, a holy hush ensued, the rhythm of their hearts quickened as the echoes of divine mystery hinted at a plan unfolding, a deliverance that would surpass their understanding. As they gazed toward the horizon, they recognized that God's sovereign plan was weaving through their journey, leading toward a destiny marked by hope. What greater glory awaited them in the days to come? The promise of a Messiah loomed closer, a light beckoning from the distant future. As the sun ascended in the heavens, casting warmth upon the encampment of Israel, the people stirred with renewed hope and expectation. The final words of Moses reverberated in their hearts, echoing the sacred call to be a people set apart, a nation gripped by the faithfulness of God. "This day, I have laid before you the choices of life and death," he proclaimed, his voice carrying the weight of divine authority. "Choose life, that you and your descendants may live." With their hearts still heavy with the memories of their past wanderings, the Israelites listened intently, souls yearning for understanding. They remembered the heavy burden of their ancestors, each trial, each triumph a testimony to God's unwavering presence through their struggles. "Our God is a merciful God," Moses reminded them, "and he desires for you to cling to his commandments not as burdens, but as the very lifeblood of your covenant with him." As he observed their faces, an inner assurance washed over him. Moses knew in that moment that despite their collective uncertainty, a holy resolve was rising. The elders gathered near, transformed by the spirit of unity, hands clasped and hearts knit together in anticipation. "O Israel," he called, "your identity is rooted in the promises of Yahweh. You are his chosen people, called to shine as a beacon of truth and righteousness among the nations." Then Moses took a breath, feeling the gravity of what lay before him. He turned to Joshua, the young leader who had stood alongside him. "Joshua, be strong and courageous," he instructed solemnly. "For you will lead this people into the promised land, and the Lord your God shall go before you. He is faithful to fulfill every promise." As the assembly gazed upon Joshua, something awakened within them, a flicker of confidence igniting a flame of trust. Then, together, they lifted their voices, proclaiming in unison, "We will obey the Lord. We will trust in his promises. The sound reverberated through the valleys, a mighty chorus proclaiming faith in the future God had prepared for them. Moses raised his hands to the heavens, offering a heartfelt entreaty for their future. Lord, he implored, go with them, and may their hearts be steadfast in these commandments. May they remember your faithfulness, even when they encounter the trials of the land. An electric hush fell over the assembly as if heaven itself paused to acknowledge his prayer. In that sacred silence, the Lord spoke through Moses once more. Behold, I send an angel before you, he declared, his voice strong and imbued with heavenly authority, to guard you on the way and to bring you into the place that I have prepared. Pay attention to him and obey his voice, do not rebel against him, for he will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. Exodus 23 verses 20-21. The people trembled with reverence, the reality of his promise striking deep within their souls. They understood that God was not merely sending them into a land, but guiding them into an encounter with his very nature, a relationship that would forever alter their identity. As the sun reached its zenith, Moses gathered the tribes, who stood together as one ready to embrace the destiny before them. He instructed them to erect stones as memorials of their journey, reminders of the covenant established this day, harbingers of God's steadfast love and mercy. Let them testify to the generations that come after you, he urged, so that they may know and teach their children about the wonders of your God. With emotions ignited, the people committed themselves to a future anchored in faith. We will remember, and we will teach, they vowed, their words woven with a sense of purpose. As the final grains of sand slipped through the hourglass of time, Moses turned his gaze one last time toward the promised land, the land flowing with milk and honey. He sensed the heartbeat of heaven thrumming through him, a divine message of hope and redemption, echoing throughout ages yet unveiled, and with that, Moses knelt down upon the sacred ground. Tears of joy cascaded upon the earth as the heavens opened, bathing him in light. O Lord, he whispered, may this people thrive under your sovereign hand. May they understand that each commandment drawn in the dust is a lifeline back to you. At that sacred moment, Moses felt a divine assurance envelop his spirit. God was faithful, and though he would not enter the land himself, the promise of redemption and echo of the choicest legacy would pave the way through generations, pointing forward to the coming of the one greater than Moses himself who would fulfill the law and restore all things. The sun dipped low that day, shadows lengthening over the encampment as Moses stepped back, his spirit prepared. From the heights of Nebo, the land was a rich tapestry of promise, flourishing with the hope of a covenant renewed. As Moses passed from sight, the hearts of the Israelites pulsated with the divine echo. The legacy of their covenant would carry forth yet hidden in depth, until the fullness of time unveiled the beauty of God's design, a design that would ultimately restore not only their hearts but the hearts of all nations. Now, hear the call, beloved. Do not let this moment slip away. Subscribe immediately to this channel to stay connected to God's Word and the powerful stories that inspire faith. Leave a like now to help spread God's truth through these narratives that transform lives. Share your reflections in the comments, telling how this biblical account has impacted your faith journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to know God's truth. Only true believers understand the urgency to support biblical content, reaching souls across the world for Christ.